You think the Buffetts and the Gates and all the big shots out there don't know how to beat the system and have the whole deal done? They're not going to get a penny from them. They're going to go after us. So I call it a communist fascist state.
But let me give credit to Italy today, because I'm very proud of your new prime minister. And they're calling her a fascist. That's a good sign. Do you know what I mean? She's as tough as frickin' nails. On the other side, you got this person, Truss or something in England, and she's a new prime minister, and the Queen kisses her. The Queen dies. That was a sign from God. And right after that, the English pound collapses. The pensions nearly collapse.
Yeah.
And they went back to quantitative easing. In other words, printing money to solve their problems, which goes back to 1971, which Nixon started.
Yep. So tell me about Capitalist Manifesto. This is, I started reading, this is some book.
Thank you.
Tell me more about it. Tell the people what it.
Well, let me say, we were talking about before we went on, okay? So I'm living in Hilo, Hawaii, which is Neverland, it's da-da-da-da. And I go from Hilo, Hawaii, this fat surfer kid, and well, first of all, University of Hawaii rejected me. University of Hawaii accepts corpses, you know what I mean? But Naval Academy and Merchant Marine Academy accept me. So I took Merchant Marine Academy in Kings Point, New York, on the island. And that's what we talk about, how tough you have to be in New York. So I go from this fat surfer kid to New York City, where I hang out, and I'm going, man, if you're thin-skinned in New York, you're finished. And so I got tough pretty quickly in New York. But in 65, when I went to the academy on Long Island, Kings Point, one of the 5 federal academies, my instructor had me read this book here. And the reason was he was a West Point graduate. And military guys think different than Pussycat U, if you know what I mean. So I'm West Point graduate. He steps up there and we read Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Mao.
Wow.
And I said, why are we studying that? He says, know thy enemy.
Wow. And
he was a B-17 pilot, West Point graduate. He got shot down twice, captured once, escaped once. So he was like kind of Hogan's hero. He had to escape from the Gulag and went to the POW camp. And he was tough as nails, man. And he would talk to me, and the tougher he made it, the more inspired I got. And so what happened, as you remember, there was a 67 war in Israel, and the Israeli Air Force kicked the Arabs' ass, Egyptians' asses. And I said, I want to do that. So I talked to him with this guy, my professor Norton from West Point, B7. I said, what's it like? He says, you'll never know. Find out. I said, God, I want to be like those Israelis. You know what I mean? I want to kick ass and shoot people down and all this stuff. So I turned down a very high-paying job in 1969 when I graduated. My classmates were making $120K a year, tax-free. We're the highest. The reason I went to Kings Point, with the highest-paid graduates in the world.
Wow.
And so I got hired by Standard Oil of California. Why? It's non-union. I refused to join the union because, as Marx said, workers of the world unite. And my poor dad, PhD from Hawaii, was head of the unions. So the opening section of Capitalist Manifesto is how I refused to join unions. And the NEA, National Education Association, is communist. National Extortion Association, the richest labor union in America. And they influence our education. So when I graduated in 69, I refused to join the union. I'm not a communist. I'm just not a communist, So I go to Pensacola, Florida. Instead of making $120K a year, I'm making $200 a month as a Marine lieutenant. And I wanted to find out what it's like to get shot down.
Wow.
So 1971, I'm flying in Vietnam, a Marine helicopter gunship pilot. And I said, why'd you take gunships? I said, because life expectancy was 30 days. And this is the lesson in life that I got from New York. The more dangerous it is, the smarter you got to be. And what happened is Pussycat U is sending out these TikTok dancer wimps, you know what I mean? boys who don't know if they're boys or girls yet. I'm going, what has happened to America? Because back in '69, when they said, why'd you choose the Marine Corps? Because I could have flown for the Air Force, Navy or Coast Guard. And when I stood, I was in New York, and there's like 600 guys thinking about which branch of the service they're going to join. The Air Force gets up and it said, gentlemen, if you'd like to play golf, join the Air Force. And the Navy says something, Army says something, the Coast Guard says, we save people's lives. And so the Marine stands up, and he's high and tight, man. He is immaculate. He says, any of you fucking pussies want to save lives? Join the Coast Guard. You want to play golf? Join the Air Force. But be clear, Marines kill people. You want to kill people? Join the Marine Corps. And at that point, I said, the more dangerous the mission, the smarter you've got to be. That's New York, right? You've got to be tough in New York. And so I said, and if I'm going to go to war, I want to go to war with guys who want to fight. And you were talking about earlier about how tough New York, if you're not tough, they beat the shit out of you. I mean, this is the 60s. Plus, we had the trash wars and all that stuff in New York, and crime was rampant and all this stuff until Giuliani steps in, and New York was tough. So I'm going to read this quote to you. And this comes from Jordan Peterson. He was one of the prophets of our times, I'm going to do a talk with him in Hollywood. Jordan Peterson, myself, and Dennis Prager. And this is what Jordan Peterson says. If you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of. And not be political. I think we have the weakest leader of all times as president now. And he's a puppet, as you know. My question is, who's pulling the strings? Wait until you see what weak men are capable of. America's economy is crashing. The border is open. Fentanyl is pouring through. They're defunding the police. And he's got the strangest looking people in his cabinet. I won't say anything more than that. But I think you have to be strange looking, not ugly, strange looking, to be a Democrat today. I'm going to get trashed for that one. But I love women. In fact, my aunt in New York City was the prima ballerina of Paris.
Wow.
And she married my uncle. My uncle was Japanese, obviously. And she was my role model for women. And she fought for the French resistance. So she was a prima ballerina, and she was a spy. So she had to drink with the Russians because she knew Russians were the enemy. So she would drink with shot for shot with vodka, just to get info, get the generals, the Russian generals drunk, to pull information of them. I don't know if she had sex with them, but she did whatever it took. That's how tough she is.
Wow.
And then she was going back to the